The research station on Kepler 442b hummed with its usual mechanical rhythm as Ailey Martinez calibrated the atmospheric sensors for the third time that morning. The xenobiology lab felt unusually quiet, with most of the crew attending the mandatory safety briefing in the main hub. She preferred it this way. Just her, the equipment, and the alien wilderness visible through the reinforced viewport. James Chen, her research partner and the station's lead xenobiologist, had left barely 20 minutes ago, reminding her to lock the exterior airlock. "The indigenous fauna is getting bolder," he'd said, his dark eyes serious. Command reported movement near the perimeter again. Ailey had nodded absently, already absorbed in her work. Now, as she adjusted the spectrometer's settings, she felt it. A warm breath on the back of her neck. The sensation was so distinctly human, so unmistakably biological, that her hands froze mid-movement. The station's environmental systems were perfect. There should be no drafts, no temperature fluctuations. Yet there it was again, a soft, rhythmic breathing that matched her own. She held her breath experimentally. The breathing behind her stopped. She exhaled slowly. The breathing resumed, perfectly synchronized. Ailey's training kicked in before panic could. Don't make sudden movements. Assess the threat. Find an exit strategy. She glanced at the reflection in the dark screen of her monitor, but the angle was wrong. She could only see her own pale face, framed by loose strands of black hair that had escaped her ponytail. "James?" She called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "If this is your idea of a joke, it's not funny." Silence. Then a soft chittering sound, curious, almost playful. Definitely not human. Slowly, with deliberate care, Ailey reached for the emergency beacon on her belt. Her fingers had just brushed the device when she felt something cold and slightly wet touch her hand. Not grabbing, not threatening, just touching as if investigating. She made her decision. In one smooth motion, Ailey spun around, her other hand grabbing the specimen jar from the counter as an improvised weapon. What she saw made her freeze entirely. A creature no larger than a terrier sat on the lab bench behind her, its six-limbed body covered in iridescent scales that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue. 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on its angular head, blinked at her in what she could only describe as startlement. Its mouth, if that's what the complex arrangement of mandibles could be called, hung open, revealing rows of crystalline teeth that gleamed under the lab's fluorescent lights. The creature tilted its head, mimicking Ailey's own defensive posture with uncanny precision. When she raised the specimen jar slightly, one of its forelimbs lifted in the same trajectory. When she lowered it, the limb descended. The synchronization was perfect, unsettling, and somehow endearing all at once. "You're a mimic," Ailey breathed, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. "A juvenile mimic predator," she'd read the reports. The apex predators of Kepler 442b were legendary. Creatures that could copy the movements and behaviors of their prey with such accuracy that entire hunting parties had been known to walk into ambushes, each member thinking they were following their teammates. Adults could grow to the size of Earth's grizzly bears with intelligence that rivaled some tool-using species. But this was a cub, and it had somehow breached 3 levels of security to play copycat with her in the lab. The creature chittered again, softer this time. Ailey noticed its scales were duller than the descriptions in the database suggested. When she looked closer, she could see it was thin, desperately thin. The elegant curve of its spine was too prominent, and its movements, though precise, carried a tremor of weakness. "You're hungry," she realized aloud, "and separated from your pack." As if in response, the cub's membrane-thin ears drooped slightly. It took a cautious step forward on the bench, its movements now less mimicry and more genuine approach. Ailey found herself lowering the specimen jar completely. The lab door hissed open. "Ailey!" "Step away from it slowly." James stood in the doorway, a neural disruptor raised and aimed at the cub. Behind him, 3 security officers fanned out, their own weapons tracking the creature. "Wait." Ailey moved instinctively, placing herself between the cub and the weapons. "It's just a juvenile." "It's starving, James. Look at it." "That juvenile could tear through your throat in half a second," James said, his voice tight with controlled fear. "We've lost 2 survey teams to the adults. The cubs aren't much safer." The creature behind Ailey released a low, warbling sound, not aggressive, but distinctly distressed. She felt it pressing against her back, its body trembling. Without thinking, Ailey reached back slowly, her palm open and unthreatening. After a moment's hesitation, the cub pressed its snout into her hand. "It's copying defensive behavior from me," Eiley said quietly. "It sees me as a potential pack member. That's why it hasn't attacked. Mimics are social learners. They need pack structures to survive." James's weapon didn't waver, but she saw the conflict in his eyes. He was a xenobiologist first, a soldier second. If we let it live, if it returns to the wild, it'll teach the others about our security weaknesses. It knows how to bypass our sensors now. "Then we don't let it return to the wild," Eiley countered. "We keep it here, study it, learn from it. Isn't that why we're out here? To understand, not just to survive?" The standoff lasted an eternity. Finally, James lowered his weapon fractionally. "You're insane," he said, but there was a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Command is going to lose their minds." "Probably," Eiley agreed. Behind her, the cub's trembling had stopped. It chittered softly, and when she glanced back, she could swear those 4 diamond-arranged eyes held something like hope. Over the following weeks, the cub, which Eiley had named Echo, became an unofficial member of the research team. It learned not through mimicry alone, but through genuine interaction. It helped locate a missing survey drone using tracking skills its species had evolved over millennia. When a pressure seal failed in Bay 3, Echo's incredible spatial awareness allowed it to guide James through a dark, smoke-filled corridor to safety. The most remarkable discovery came when Echo began teaching them, showing them which local plants were edible, which water sources were safe, how to read the subtle atmospheric changes that preceded the planet's violent electromagnetic storms. The creature that had breached their security as a starving cub had become their bridge to understanding an alien world. As Eiley watched Echo curl up in its designated corner of the lab one evening, its scales now gleaming with proper health, she reflected on humanity's greatest strength. Not their technology, not their weapons, but their almost reckless willingness to extend trust across the vast gulfs of biology and evolution. James appeared beside her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "You know," he said quietly, "when we write this up, Command is going to use it as evidence that humans are either the bravest or the stupidest species in the galaxy." Eiley accepted the coffee with a smile. "Why not both?" Outside the viewport, Kepler 442b's twin moons rose over the alien horizon, and inside the lab a human and a predator slept side by side, proof that sometimes the most dangerous thing humanity could do was care.